Hey everybody! Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. This is something that Tim, this is one of his ideas, so I'm hoping he's going to be able to lead this one. We'll see. But the general gist is that is every coincidence a sign from God or a sign about one thing or another? Like, should we be looking around every bush to say that this is a sign that God's saying, I want you to do this? Or could it just be simply pure coincidence and have nothing related to your situation? We're going to be talking about that. Let's jump right in. Welcome back to ThoughtRaid, a show where we take on thoughts and find better ways of thinking about them. I'm Brandon, and with me today is Tim, and also Jared, and also Deathbane, who is in the background, who may or may not say anything, I don't know, that's up to him entirely, but we are going to be talking today about are the coincidences that are happening in our lives have anything to do with God saying this is something you're supposed to be doing, or is it just pure coincidence? And if there is a difference, what the difference is. Because I feel like as a Christian, this is something that's really important to navigate, because not everything is a thus saith the Lord situation, and it would be pretty crappy to just go into a situation you thinking it's God and it's been you the whole time. Plot twist, it was your confirmation biasy. So I feel like this is a very important thing. This is something I regularly try to navigate between what is just my brain saying things and what is actually God saying things to me, or is this something that's God's like, yes, this should be happening. This is something that's very important to me because as a leader, I don't want to lead people astray. So this is a topic that's been on your heart specifically, Tim. Talk to us. What's going on up there? What brought you to this topic today?
That's a really good question. I guess I don't even know how to pop this off, Brandon. And first of all, I want to start by saying that as we position this topic, by no means are we trying to convince anybody, hey, you need to believe in God, or that, we're not trying to sway you any way whatsoever. Today's Get Naked Monday, where we just process what we're all thinking and trying to figure out. I think as Christians, it's faith can be really difficult sometimes. Like the idea of believing in this entity that you can't touch, see, or feel. Well, feel is subjective, I guess. It's really easy to think, am I just making this up? Is all this just a figment of my imagination, or is this real? You know? Um, and I guess I'm just thinking about that and what coincidences look like, because I definitely experienced coincidences before I was a Christian. I've experienced a lot more with, and I'll get into this later, a lot more coincidences backed by a relationship after I was a Christian. But I guess like just looking at relationships in general, when you're engaging with another person, there's so many mental acrobatics that you go through, like over analyzing or under analyzing or making assumption or thinking what they're thinking, and oh, they said this thing, did they mean this by this? Or oh, they didn't hold my hand, or they didn't call me back, or they didn't text me back, they didn't respond, does that mean they don't like me anymore? And looking at all these signs and trying to qualify, do we have a relationship or not? Or like I've definitely in my relationships had things like fears or assumptions that I've gone through thinking, okay, well, this must definitely be true. And as I talked to that person, no, they weren't thinking or feeling those things at all. It was all something that was conjured up inside my head. So I guess today the whole topic is just figuring out, like, how do we know it's actually God? And that's a scary question for a lot of Christians, because so much of Christian faith that I've seen has been based on, well, you just need to believe, and even if you don't understand, and if you say anything that has doubt, that's blasphemous, and that's sinful. That's basically smacking God in the face or spitting in his face and not having enough faith, and that's frowned upon. And I think that's dangerous. I think that's tough because everybody has those questions. Even in marriage, I have questions like that, like, do I actually love that person? Do they love me? In moments of doubt, in our friendship, Brandon, I've had moments where it's like, what is up with this guy? You know, this piece of whatever. Um, am I making sense? Are you tracking with me, Brandon,
I mean,
Jared?
no. I mean, like in general, like of course, people are gonna have questions about a lot of different things to suggest that we can live completely and totally in perfect faith about the situation is just unrealistic because there's too many things that happen that are like I don't know if that, if that's I don't know if this person truly likes me. I don't really know if this, situation is truly real or whatever. Like I have moments where like I'll share something with a friend and I think that this is completely cool and my friend will not find that cool and then I feel insecure and I have micro doubts or bigger doubts depending on our the wellness of our friendship and then I go and like, hey, let me just talk to you about a moment of insecurity here. Did you think of me any different because I enjoyed this and you did not or whatever. Like these are these are things that I've had to work out some doubts even though I've known the person for a very long time. Still encounter moments where I'm questioning our own friendship based off of how that last one went. I didn't think it went that well. Clearly, now they think that I'm weird or whatever. But then translate to real life situations. Yes, I've definitely had moments where I'm like, is this, I've questioned my faith. I've questioned my, certain things I thought were reality. Boy, if you get around the wrong people that are very toxic, you'll question everything because they will definitely attack you and your self-esteem repeatedly. I've had that. But no, I get that. I understand. What are your thoughts on that, Jared?
I'm definitely picking up what Tim's putting down. I mean, yeah, going back to what you said about like friendships and judging them based on like a last interaction, there definitely been times where um being so nervous that like the conversation like didn't end super positively or on a joke or like did
Mhm.
anybody like did my friend get anything from the conversation we just had, and it's like, okay, well, I guess they'll never want to hang out with me again. That's fine. It's I'll just never call them or interact with them at all.
Just
Yeah.
looking at circumstances though, because I totally feel that, Jared. Like I remember there was a time where I invited a bunch of you guys over to our apartment, and I just wanted to show off the new VR thing that I had. Do you remember that?
No, I didn't remember that you had VR.
Actually, no.
Yeah, I invited you guys over to the apartment, and it was just extremely boring. It was so boring. Like it was not a new experience for you guys, but it was new for me. And I remember thinking, man, I've totally let these people down. They're not going to want to be my friends anymore. And I think one of the traps of Christian religion, especially, is that we look at it completely circumstantial. Like I remember my friend Eric Grayler, his something happened where, and this is all public knowledge, so I'm free to talk about this. His girlfriend slash wife, fiance,
That's the whole range.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they're
What other
transitioning.
relationship could they have?
Uh, anyway, they were gonna have a baby, and then Brittany, his fiance, got sick. And she had some kind of immuno disease or whatever where she couldn't receive medications or I'm sorry, she had an immune deficiency, and basically they wanted to give her this treatment, and if they gave her this treatment it would kill the baby. If she didn't get the treatment she was going to die.
Oh,
And so it's like,
jeez.
how do you decide that, right?
Yeah.
And then as they moved forward, stuff happened. They lost the baby, and somebody significant to Eric told him, well, it was God's will. If it happens, it's God's will. I'm like,
Hot take. I
oh,
really hate when any Christian or Christian-like entity tries to justify a circumstance by saying like it was God's will, or like God made a way, or worse yet, God told me to, and like as much power to you. Like if God's talking to you, that's great. You're communicating with the Father. Like that's the point. But don't tell somebody that it was God's will to take away something.
Mm.
Like he can use that circumstance to he can use the circumstance. He did not cause it.
Hmm.
And that's how I want to think about it, because there's what show is it? Scrubs. Um, and like the the lead nurse, head nurse, whatever. She's like, you know, it's God has a, God essentially God has. I'm paraphrasing. God has a plan for everything, or like God wanted it to happen, and then the doctor gets angry. He's like, why would God want this to happen?
Hmm.
And I don't think. So just pulling this from out of the air, not saying this actually happened. I don't think God gave you COVID, right? But because you got it, he can now use it. Like, you're not going anywhere for a week and a half. Like, he can talk to you. You can rest. You can take the rest that you weren't taking, even though he told you to do it. Like, it's just, I guess, coincidences like that might, oh, I'm really bummed out this happened. God, why do you hate me? He doesn't hate you.
Yeah.
He didn't force that thing upon you, but he's going to use it.
Yeah, so
Like,
let me set a timeline real quick, because you're touching on something that I was thinking about, Jared, and it's like, in my personal experience, I've had and experienced a lifetime of coincidences before I acknowledged God, and then the transition period between me having a relationship with Jesus and then or me not having one to me having one. There was a relationship that was built. I mean, that's the whole point of saying that, right? And it's like, it's kind of like when you start a new video game and you really don't understand the mechanics, but you
not a
do
gamer.
something, huh?
Said if you're not a gamer,
Ha!
Yeah. But you don't really understand the mechanics. You do something like you're playing Street Fighter and then you do a shuriken, and you're like, how did I do that? What was the button mechanics that caused that to happen? And it seemed like there were so many things that were random, but it was just like coincidence. And coincidence is basically saying, okay, you shoot a shuriken when you hit down diagonal forward B. It's like when those two things line up, you get the result, right? And I've had a ton of those in my life that were kind of unexplained, and they just seemed completely random. Like, okay, this just must be a coincidence. This star aligned with this star that gave me this result, and that's just kind of cool. And just thinking about how in my relationships with people, there have been a lot of coincidences. Like, everybody knows that phenomenon. There's a name for it, and if you guys know what the name for it is, let me know in chat. But like, you get I don't know, a Ford Focus. You immediately start seeing a lot more Ford Focuses on the road.
yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, if you have a friend that I don't know, you enter a Christian community, you start acknowledging, oh, okay, this person's Christian, this person, this person, this person. Gaming community is the same way. You start picking up on signs of people that are part of that community because of the relationship you have with that community. But I think something that has changed for me, because the whole concept of where I wanted to take this is acknowledging, okay, is this coincidence or is this just God? And how do we know it's God if it is? And just thinking about the relationship aspect of it. There have been a lot of times where I've had conversations with God about something, and then in the weeks or months following, there are things that happen that are directly correlate to the conversation that I had with him. And I could mark it up to just a coincidence, or that just happened, and I'm putting a God stamp on it. But what do you guys think about that specifically? Because I think that's where a lot of Christians falter, and there's a lot of blind faith that goes in there that analytical or agnostic or even skeptical people would just pick apart.
I mean, to be fair, like, I kind of stand with the whole thing of like, the older I get, the more I'm aware of what's me and what's not me, and what is my own wisdom and what is not my own wisdom. And I feel like there's some things, like, there's a lot of things in life that are just gonna be the coincidence of like the decisions we make. Like, there's gonna be 9 times out of 10, I feel like we're gonna be creating a lot of like ripple effects from the decisions we make, and it'll make it look like, oh no, how did this happen? You spend a lot of time brooding, and feeling terrible about yourself or whatever, not doing anything about it, and then you get sick. Oh no, how did that happen? Like, like it's not coincidence that happened if you're not taking care of yourself. You're not not paying attention to your mental health in this situation. Like that produces things with time. It's not like, oh, like this is clearly a sign that I'm a terrible person. Like, no, it's not. And at the same time, like if like all of a sudden you have a lot of really good friends that are helping you through things, but you spent your entire life building up friendships and helping people and making sacrifices, healthy sacrifices for others so that the relationship can grow. And then this situation happens. It's not entirely coincidence because you spent all this time building that up. At the same time, I feel like there are going to be some things that just sit as outliers that, yes, I am focusing on this more than I would have normally focused on it before, but it's the situation that these are the people who are coming into my life talking about these things. They're not necessarily in the same boat as me. So like what I'm referring to, there is a situation that I'm currently navigating when it comes to one of my communities, with a person that's making decisions I don't think is right, and they're in some leadership in one of my groups, and so I began talking to God about that and talking, with other people about it. And so they go through their everyday life, and suddenly they come across something that is related to the situation, but they would not normally be looking for. I don't know. And then they bring that back to me. Yes, that's in part not necessarily coincidental, but the way they've described it and stuff, the things that they found that they didn't see before, for some reason, for me, that kind of stands out as a little less coincidental than, or like random happenstance than, less of that and more of this is God guiding the situation type of thing. It looks like that, but given that God is over all things and has the ability to work all things together for our good and can make things happen that wouldn't normally happen, I feel like there could be, like a sign. And then especially if I go have that happen and I go to God about it and God's like, yes, this is me speaking. Well then, okay, cool. I feel like that does make a big difference too. Also, I feel like I'm buckshotting everywhere, but I hope I'm answering your question well, Tim. Have I gone way off course or am I on to something? Please help.
There's definitely some buckshot, but for the most part,
Sorry.
you're tracking. Like, I'm just thinking about relationships in my life, because when I talk about God and when I relate my experiences with God, or I try to like explain my relationship with God, with people, a lot of times it's difficult for them to track because the expectation has been set their entire lives that your relationship with God isn't really a relationship. It's a representation of, king peasant, king servant, or he's up there, we're down here, he's far away, I'm here because of sin, and I need to get rid of my sin in order to have a relationship with him. But if I think about belief, I just think about the belief I have in people that I have actual relationships with, like you guys and my wife and my close friends and my family, and what that actually looks like as far as coincidence, and how do I know we have a relationship, because there's a lot of coincidences that happen in my life being married. It's like, oh, we show up at the same place. Oh, we just happen to sleep in the same bedroom. Oh, it's a coincidence that we eat the same meals in the same house at the same time.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's a direct representation of our relationship. So I guess what I kind of want to position to you and Jared is, what are some coincidences that have happened in your life where okay, based on my relationship with Jesus and what we've been talking about, this coincidence or happenstance I know is a direct result of my relationship, and I know it's God instead of, oh, this just happened.
I'm gonna throw that to you, Jared, first.
All right. Well, I think I have a story. I thought I could get like an example of each, but I got a story of a coincidence that was definitely God. So let's see. Back in the day, when me and my sister were both like single digit age, mom was going through something in particular, like either like recently divorced or like she was struggling in a certain way.
Mhm.
and struggling so much so that she didn't have food to cook for dinner,
Oh wow.
and she's praying, she is on her knees, she's given herself to God. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? You know, like, am I a horrible parent, not being able to provide for my children? And you know, in the midst of humbling herself, there's a knock at the door, and it's the neighbors. Um, and you know, she goes, hey, how you doing? Blah blah blah. And it was, I forget the specifics, but the neighbor was literally just like, we ordered food from somewhere, and it was way too much. Please take some, right? And you know, it was like, okay, wow, yes, thank you. So, and we could eat for like a few days, and then you know, we were blessed with like with a grocery trip, but I'm to that effect. Like, is it a coincidence? Did the neighbors just so happen to have extra food, or did God intervene and was like, you know, you don't need all this. Why not take it to somebody who does? Or that's that's what I'm saying. Like, what a coincidence to
Mm.
have extra food, and then just not even assume that somebody doesn't have food, but just go ask, like, could you use this better than I could? And
Mhm.
when you started talking about coincidences, that's what my mind went to, because that, you know, so miraculous. Like, is it a coincidence, or was it a miracle? Was it you know, like, God's
Mhm.
blessing, the kindness of my neighbor's heart? Like, who knows?
Yeah.
But
That's definitely a situation. It's not like the neighbors were in on the situation and they knew, and like, oh, like, you know, it's a coincidence. Like, there's no way they. I don't think your mom was going around broadcasting to anyone
yeah,
that was going on.
whoopsie doopsie, I got all this extra food. You know,
Yeah,
S-
I've
Yeah.
had
What about you, Brandon?
I've had some situations like that too. Um, like it's I don't know. This maybe not be the best of examples, but it definitely just kind of going with what comes to mind. Um, I think it's interesting what's been panning out with thought rate and everything. Which I think is more than a coincidence, because in 2012, God placed in my heart to go to Japan. I didn't know why, because at the time I wasn't that great into anime, and I wasn't that really interested in Japanese culture by a long shot. You know, except that I liked Japanese food sometimes, but that's about it. And from that point, I started my gaming community, and a lot of people came in who was into anime, which then I got into anime. And then when you're around anime all the time, you learn about Japanese culture by proxy to some degree. And then in 2018, all of a sudden, just this, I got hit with this massive amounts of inspiration to learn and consume everything that I could about Japanese culture. I started listening to actual Japanese music from popular artists over there, began to watch YouTubers from Japan talk about the country and how it's doing and what they think about it. Um, and in 2019, Tim, you and I, and you, Jared, and we began looking towards taking a trip out to Japan for a week and a half or so. And in 2020, I began to pull money together. Like, I started a whole like fundraising campaign on Facebook and stuff, and God brought in exactly what we needed at the time for me to be able to go in a month and a half, which is that was the first step that was pretty big, because like up to that point I had tried to do money raising before, and not even close did I raise the numbers in that like I did there. So I knew that that was definitely a God thing, because I'd tried before and failed horribly at trying to raise money for different things. But that's not the coincidence I'm thinking of. It goes a step further. So from that point, of course, COVID hit. So I got the money in like February, and then March, everything shut down, and by April, you couldn't go anywhere. And so I was like, well, crap, I have all the money to go to Japan, and Japan is closed. Can't go. And then I began to think about it over time, like, okay, how I knew God was calling me to Japan, but I didn't know how I'd be able to financially support myself in Japan. All I knew was that I had the money to visit once, and that was it. And my goal was to go and meet some church leaders in Japan and like learn from them.
I thought you were gonna go and meet some chicks.
No, that was not what I was gonna say. But no, I was gonna meet some church leaders and then, maybe find my next steps that way. But when we started ThoughtRaid, shortly thereafter, when the pandemic shut everything down, it began to click about how I would be able to sustainably move to Japan and not have to worry about money. And granted, ThoughtRaid's not there yet, but ThoughtRaid, I feel like, is that door that, like, should the time come where it is time for me to move to Japan for however length of time that'll be, I can still be building this regardless of where in the globe I'm at. And we can continue to do things. We can continue to game. We can continue to do what we're doing right now and stuff. We just have to, swing it properly depending on the time differences. Because I think Japan is presently 14 hours ahead of us. So I'd have to work that out. But other than that, with the internet, thank God, that's no longer an issue. I can work from wherever. So I feel like that's a little bit more than coincidence. Personally, I feel like that this is all God. I know ThoughtRaid's a God thing. I know going to Japan is a God thing. I know that the money raised is a sign that because otherwise, like if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have been able to go. Like that doesn't just happen. Like yes, I've again tried to raise money for things before, but no one just like, oh, here you go. Like that just never happened. That just never happened for me. So I just kind of, I don't know. That's my story.
Yeah, so I got 3 if I can tell them quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
And they line up because I was thinking about this earlier. I was just thinking about my transition into life as being a Christian because I stayed with my parents until I was like 28. I lived with my parents, and it never registered for me that I could feasibly live on my own. I never had that expectation level of myself, or that belief level, I should say. And then I entered into a relationship that obviously broke. And that's when you and I went to Muddy Creek, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was feeling really broken. And you started telling me about Jesus and about how I am loved and I am a son of God and that my identity doesn't change with my circumstances. Like you told me all that stuff and it like really broke me. And then all of a sudden, all these beliefs that I had about all these limiting beliefs that I had about myself started being lifted. And then there were opportunities that just kept coming into my life. Like I remember Donald Lawson. I had lunch with him one day and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about moving into the Friendship House?" Friendship House is what it was like the hub of our community back then. And I was like, no, I've never thought about that. And I was presented with the opportunity to do so. Whereas before, I never would have considered it. That was such a daunting task. What do you mean? Being responsible for myself financially and just like taking a huge life step. What if it fails? I just had a lot of peace where I did not previously had peace. And my whole conversation with God in that transition was, God, would you surround me with community and help me understand who I am in you? And so I took that step. And I moved into the Friendship House, and that's where I met all of my current friends. That's, that community is where I met my wife. Like a lot of doors opened up for me where previously I just didn't think I could enter into that environment. And that was kind of interesting. When I started asking God to work on me in certain ways, I started getting opportunities in peace, not like I was trying to strive or force anything. If you fast forward a couple years, we got married, my wife and I, and I had this little Volvo that I drove, and it died one day. And so I was just thinking to myself, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I was like, God, I don't have money for another vehicle. I live on my own now with some friends, obviously not like by myself, but in a house with a group of friends. I hadn't learned anything about saving money. I had no money saved up, and so I was like, crap, I'm kind of in a pinch. And my buddy gives me a call. He's like, hey, I'm gonna loan you my Ford Explorer, and he brings it over, and he's like, use as long as you need. I've got 2 cars, and so I was very thankful for that. And so I drove, and I was looking for vehicles to purchase, so I could give his car back. And then I was like, God, why am I not finding anything? You know, I tried financing, and I couldn't find anything that worked. You know, and that same friend gives me a call. He's like, hey, could you meet me at Haynes Mall? And so I go up to Haynes Mall, and he's like showing me this new car that he had bought. He got another Ford Explorer, Eddie Bauer edition, green. And it was cold, so I got into his car, and we were talking. He's like, hey, you know, I don't really need that Ford Explorer anymore. Do you want it? I was like, what? You're giving me a car? That is so cool. And you know, I was just thinking like, okay, so all these avenues that I was pursuing in my own strength were not working out, but God kept saying to me, you know, be patient, be patient, be patient. And, you know, coincidentally, after some time, my friend gave me a car. And then moving forward, a couple years down the road, that Explorer started dying. It got to the point where it would only, I couldn't reverse. Something happened, and basically I would have to park on an incline. So if I had to reverse, I would just set it in neutral and roll backwards. But it finally died. And I was walking back and forth to work. And Arian and I were looking for vehicles, and once again, we just couldn't find. We didn't have enough money to purchase a vehicle because we were working on one income, my GameStop income, which was not a lot of money. And we were praying, like, God, like, what are we going to do about this? Like, financially and on the books, it does not make rational sense how we're going to afford another vehicle. And then out of nowhere, my dad shoots me a message. He's like, I want to give you $10,000 to find a car. And I'm like, wow, okay, thank you so much, you know? And I don't want to embellish at all, but I think it was like that same night or the night thereafter, I went on Facebook Marketplace, and my favorite color is blue, and I find this blue Mini Cooper for $1,000 less than what my dad had given me. And it had been fixed up, you know, had like a turbo put on it, and, you know, carbon fiber, everything. And it was a really nice vehicle. And the guy didn't even drive it. It had less than, I think, 70,000 miles on it. And he just had it in the shop, and he was toying around. He just wanted a new car. He was like, just take over payments, you know, pay it off, whatever. And it's yours. And so the next day we drove down, I got the car, and boom, I had a new to me in amazing condition blue Mini Cooper. That's everything that I've wanted. It has been a fantastic car since then. But it's like all of that coincidence was predicated with my relationship with God, me asking. Mm. I just think that's so interesting, because like I have had stuff like that happen to me before in my life, but all of it was it just seemed like, wow, this is nothing like this ever happens to me ever. Like something finally worked out. And now it's like a lot of the coincidences I have are in direct response to me having a conversation with God about it.
Yeah.
I just think that's really interesting.
I have to say, though, like, honestly, I've learned a lot from you, just kind of watching you over the years and seeing how God took care of you. Because for me, I was not a coincidence person for the most part. Like, I knew coincidence happened. So, like, it was not like I looked at every coincidence as, oh, this is me. But, like, I definitely didn't wait for coincidences to happen. I definitely strived and struggled constantly to make things happen, to the point where it brought me lots of anxiety and then, you know, damaged my mental health. And so just watching how God would take care of you and things would happen around you and you seemingly do nothing for it, I was like, if this could happen for Tim, certainly this could happen for me. I do not need to be trying as hard as I do not need to be a tryhard all of this. And so I feel like at this point in my life, where I'm going to be 30 in the next couple of months, wow, I have come a long ways in like trying to make things happen, to the point where you just can't make me try as hard as I used to, because I know that if it's meant to be, things will fall into place. And if it's not, I don't. And I've done what I can do. Now, to be specific, if it doesn't happen and I've done what I can do, and I feel like this is something that God has called me to do, then it's just not the right timing. And I'm not going to keep pushing to the point where I'm just overly stressed. And it's almost comedical for me now, because I will see people younger than me now rising up, and they're super stressed about things, trying to make things happen. I'm like, this is just going to take time. Just relax, let it happen. You can't make it happen. You can't, like, you can live your life, pleasing and honorable before God, and that's what's most valuable here. But beyond that, just calm down, slow down, like, let it happen, kind of thing. This whole thing with what we're doing with Thought Raid, very, very coincidental of having you come and join us, Jared, and you've been helping us with just adding more life to our streams with just who you are. Like, you coming here, being yourself, joining us when we're playing Overwatch, and bringing in your ideas when we're having team meetings behind the scenes, or having Jordan come and join us and helping make some skits to build these things. I didn't necessarily go looking for you guys to join per se. Like, you came to me, and like, and it feels more than coincidental that you're coming to join, and like, the things that God is showing me that what UGN is Thought Raid is possible of, and UGN too. I am not smart enough or as well coordinated for it to be doing what it's doing now, and for what it is going to be doing later on in the future as we continue to have more people help us, such as yourself.
Something else also that I think needs to be said, because we're talking about like coincidence and how do we know it's God. And my whole position on this, and that I've been talking about, is like a lot of the coincidence is predicated by a conversation. In the early inception years of Thought Raid and UGN for you and Break the Meta for me, or just our relationship, yours and mine in general, we kept talking about how and praying like, God, we believe that you have told us that you're going to bring all the necessary laborers to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And this year has been the fulfillment of that, because there are so many things like that verse that says that he cuts away all the branches that don't produce fruit and he prunes the ones that do, so that they can produce more fruit. There's a lot of stuff that we stopped doing this past year that we're just taking life out of our line of work. And as soon as we step back, and if you guys follow us and you receive our newsletter, we talked about that in this we talked about the team that God's been putting together. Ellie, our friend, said that sometimes we're only given a piece of the puzzle, and we're not meant to find all the other pieces. We're meant to wait until God brings the pieces together to give us the whole picture, and it incorporates other people. And that was kind of like that was an addition to what you and I were praying, Brandon. But this year, there's so many people that have identified themselves with, either being a personality, Jared, wanting to help with social media engagement, Eric, wanting to do marketing and analytics for us, Noah, video editing and skits and all that stuff, Jordan and Ellie. There's just so many of those people that have been brought to that find life in doing that. I just think it's so cool, because it's a fulfillment of our conversation from a couple of years ago. And I think that's also something that really prevents people from seeing God for who he is, because we put our timeline on. We're like, God, we just had this conversation. It's been 5 minutes. Why haven't you done anything about it?
Yeah, no, honestly, like, God works on a completely different time scale than us, because he's not bound by time, and therefore soon for him is not the same soon for us. I was recently watching a new episode of, well, it's not the newest episodes, but whatever, a new episode of The Chosen, and I think it was the second one of this season, and it was so perfect. It was just I think, Jesus was talking to, I want to say it was Peter, or at the time Simon, and they were talking about time frames of doing things, and Jesus kind of pulls out the whole soon concept with Peter, and it's just I'm just like, I feel this so much, because soon for God and soon for us are not the same soons at all. It's the most frustrating but most accurate thing that he can say, because it's like, yeah, it's soon. don't know what soon it is, but it's not my soon. It's his soon. Anything is soon for him. When a day can be as 1,000 years for God, or excuse me, 1,000 years for us can be as a day for God. I got that backwards. Then, like, it's like anything is possible. Really, it's just a matter of time. And depending on whether or not this universe is billions of years old or millions or just a couple thousand, I don't know. Regardless of its age, the time is irrelevant to God because he's outside of it all. And so it's just you can't put God into the same timeline because he sees things broader and can be in every single moment instantaneously as well.
So let me ask you guys this, because I was talking about this with somebody earlier. When and I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way, but first of all, have you ever felt disconnected from your relationship with God and like you're just floating through the ether and faking it as a Christian? And if you have felt that way, what do you think caused that?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
definitely felt that.
that's a yes for me, boss.
That is a confirmed yes. Actually, it's a confirmed recent yes. Like I've had a moment recently where I kind of felt a little bit disconnected because what caused it was because I thought God said one thing, and I was really certain that he said it, and then it didn't happen the way that I was expecting it to happen, and I was like, well, I got it wrong. How many other things in my life have I been getting wrong? And it's just one of those spiraling rabbit holes that I've often felt that fell down when I get one thing wrong. Then I feel like I'm just failing at everything, and therefore I just distance myself from God. Not because of anything he did, just because I feel like I've blown it, and therefore I begin to isolate. And feel like maybe I've got this whole thing wrong the whole time, because if I get this wrong, then everything else clearly must be the case. So yes, very recently I have felt that it's not like a distant past thing at all. I'm speaking circular here, but I'm gonna stop.
Yeah. What about you, Jared?
Yeah, I would say I'm going through that kind of period right now. It's always nice when you're with like-minded people and they're like, well, God told me to do this and I did it and it worked. And you're like, thank the Lord. Hallelujah. Let's celebrate. Let's
Mhm.
thank God that he did that. And, I'm kind of like, all right, Lord, why is my inbox empty?
Lord, why
Like,
aren't you in my DMs?
why did you leave me on red? Like,
Yeah.
I prayed to you. I know you heard it. Why is nothing happening? And that kind of goes back to I think something Brandon touched upon at the beginning was like if you aren't taking care of yourself and you get sick, that's not a coincidence. You let yourself get sick. So not to say like I did something wrong as a Christian, therefore God is ignoring me.
No.
But me personally, I'm not doing the things I need to do to actually have a conversation with God.
Mhm.
So,
And I feel like to kind of like take it a step further on that concept, because I understand that a lot. I I don't think it's a matter of like God can't talk to me because I'm doing these things. I think it's a matter of like God knows that there are certain activities that I do that just causes me to kind of distance myself in general. And he hasn't gone anywhere, but I have. And so if he tries to speak to me in those moments, he knows that I'm just going to interpret that negatively or ignore it entirely, like pearls before swine type of deal. Because that's something I've noticed. Sometimes God does not speak to me clearly about things until I've realized something and unlearned a negative belief, and then there's like a flood that happens of conversation between me and God. And it wasn't a matter of like God was punishing me, but it was a matter of like he didn't want to share it with me, and then it just get thrown out and misconstrued, and now I have another weird belief about him. um and so in the end, it wasn't a matter of like God's like, oh, this is your punishment for whatever. No, it was just a matter of like I'm not in the right space to hear that thing that he's trying to tell me.
Yeah.
And now I
You know,
am.
Brendan, on that, the concept of God is really ridiculous to me because he's supposed to be a father, he's supposed to be a friend, he's supposed to be sovereign, he's supposed to be a king, he's supposed to be the creator, the Alpha and the Omega. It's like, how can the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, spend time with me in this little office as my friend? When there's so many other people out here that should be more deserving, coming from a person that struggles with their, I don't want to say struggles with my identity, just struggles with confidence sometimes, and it's like looking at my own relationships, because the relationships you have in your life are a direct, well, I keep saying this, they're a direct correlation with how you view your relationship with God, and vice versa. Like it's frequent where you put your expectations on God that you have of your natural father. That's a theme that I've seen. And then I also think about how I communicate with my wife, because we have the most communication, and it really frustrates me sometimes, because sometimes I feel like I have difficulty communicating, not just like feeling heard, but like understanding her, being patient for her, being kind to her. And I put a whole lot of expectations on her based on how I'd want somebody to treat me, or what makes sense to me. Like something I read recently was that an argument is simply a battle for what's obvious. And I think a lot of breakdowns in a relationship come from, well, it's obvious to me. This is not obvious to you. Why not? You must be A, B, or C. You must be stupid. You must be ignorant. You must not love me. You must, like, there's all these expectations that are associated with that. And I think for me, like, I have definitely felt disconnected from God in different ways over the past couple of years, because I get impatient. And I'm thinking, God, I'm doing everything that I know to do. Why isn't this happening? Like with my business, I fully expected my coaching business to take off and be making, $70,000 a year plus, and having exponential growth. And I'm in year 2, and it's like, man, what have I accomplished? But then if I actually stop and look at my conversations with God and what's happened because of those and things I've learned, and posture myself with some humility before a sovereign king who knows best, he's not going to waste words when he knows I'm not going to listen. He knows that he's going to be gentle with me when I need somebody to be gentle with me. He's going to be firm when I need somebody to be firm, and he's not going to talk when he knows that I need to be the one taking some action and listening. And so just thinking about like the whole coincidence and is this God or not? Like when he's not doing something, I think a big stumbling block for me is thinking, well, if he's not doing something, he should be doing something because he's God, and it's like, sometimes I feel like I want to just take my ability to choose off the table because I want God to act, because A, that would be better, and B, that would be easier because it takes responsibility off of me in the relationship. But, relationships require sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something, whether it's pride, humility, expectation, previous beliefs. Like you were saying, Brandon, you had to cast off certain beliefs that you had in order to grow.
Yeah.
And in order for me to grow with my relationship with God and get back to speaking terms, so to speak, I find myself like almost daily having to renew my expectations of him and saying, no, 1 Corinthians 13 says faith, hope, and love, these 3 abide. And it's like, do I really have faith in God? Do I really believe the best of him? Do I really believe that, as his word says, that he has plans to prosper me and not harm me? That his word says that if I seek, I shall find. If I knock, the door shall be opened. Do I actually believe that I'm a son of God? Do I believe that I'm a prodigal son of God? Like, as much as I mess up, I'm going to go back to him and he's still going to see me for who I am instead of what I've done. Do I actually believe that? And so, like, when I don't believe those things, it's really easy for me to mark coincidences up as, oh, this is just, these 2 chemicals that are scientifically out in the world just happen to manifest together in a way that produces a good result, instead of glory to God, all because of my faulty expectations of him,
I will say, this is kind of like, this is going to be me processing just how I hear things and stuff with God. I feel like the spaces of which that I hear God the loudest and the clearest is in spaces where I'm in danger because I'm making decisions that are definitely not good for me. and are going to result in immediate harm. So, like, for instance, if I were to start dealing with porn again, I begin to hear God like, "Don't go down this path." Also, in those moments, he's like, Brandon, don't feel terrible at the same time. Like, he's kind of like buffeting me at the same time of like not allowing me to just fall to pieces, but at the same time, like, don't go down this path. This is not good for you. This is not for you. Other times I hear him pretty loud is when I'm not self-deprecating or hating myself. Like, the minute I begin to realize his goodness and how he made me to be or whatever, I kind of hear him kind of swoop in and just kind of like lovingly speak to me and kind of add to that moment. Because I'm already having a good moment, but it just gets better because it's just like God's like, "I'm proud of you. I love you. You're doing good, whatever." And then I feel like a third time where I hear God pretty well is when I'm just like regularly like intentionally pushing out anything that I know is not him, and which has taken me years of reading the Word of God, knowing how he's talked to other people and how they interpreted that, and what I've known from what other people have said, and surrounding myself with people who have also talked to God and kind of like filtering through all that, and then just intentionally like pulling back anything that does not align. And those moments are sometimes a little bit iffy because I will still not quite sure, is this God or not God. But I would say in those situations I'd get maybe like a 75% reception rating instead of like, it could be God, I don't know. Because like in this situation recently where I got it wrong in hearing God, I did hear God right in another area. Like, he was talking to me about like the pay increase that I just got. But I thought that he was talking about that it was going to happen in one way and it didn't. But the pay increase did happen, and that was a moment where I was intentionally seeking God and like what he had to say about it. So, when I'm intentionally separating myself from distractions, like when I take a walk at night or at the park during the day, and I am like inviting him to speak to me and praying against distractions and things that are from my own head or from Satan himself, then that situation as well as the other two is when I typically hear him best. And then all other situations is like a coin toss, especially like when I'm feeling really bad about myself.
Did you say a coin toss?
I might have said that, but I meant to say coin toss. But other situations, like, especially if I'm feeling really bad about myself or whatever, that's usually the times where it's just my anxiety pushes out his voice entirely.
Yeah, what are you thinking about, Jared?
Me, well, before I talk about myself, I just thought it was kind of funny. I used to have a pastor who, during sermons, would just be like, "God always talks to me while I'm in the shower." Like, if we're gonna talk about reception and like when can I hear him, he's like, I'm sudsing up the sponge, and he's like, "My dear son," and you're like, "Well, okay, if this is when you want to do it."
Yes, that's another good place too. Or on the toilet.
Right. But I guess when it comes to me, I think something that really it does really frustrate me is that I have to believe that God uses like you guys, like the empty vessels that are in my life to talk to me. And why is it frustrating? Like, it's not like I don't trust you, but Lord, it'd be nice if you talk to me about me. Like, can if you have something for me in my life, why didn't you tell me? Instead of getting, I guess, confirmation or affirmation from somebody else. And I don't know if I need to humble myself and just accept that all the time, or if there's something I can do that can enrich the one-on-one with me and God. But to be honest, like, I guess I kind of struggle hearing him. Like, I don't think I'm making the wrong decisions, but a lot of the times I feel like I didn't get any prior advice before I go out and do something.
I
So,
wonder, Jared, like just thinking about what you were saying, I got the picture of you know how when you try to feed a dog medicine and
mhm.
you hide the medicine in a piece of cheese
Oh
to
yeah.
kind of, I wonder, like God has definitely done that to me before where he's done things in a way where it's like, why can't you just give me a direct answer? But it's like he has to code it in something else that makes it palatable for me because that other thing is what I need, not what I'm seeking. It's like I'm seeking after the solution to a symptom instead of the root of the problem, you know? And I know that I've had a similar thing where it's like, well, God, why can't you just speak to me instead of through all these people? But, you know, as I've pursued that, and this is my personal thing. I don't know if this is true for you, and this isn't like canon for anybody else. I'm speaking specifically for me, but it's like a lot of times I'll go seeking after something that I think is the primary problem. God's like, no, 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 no. What you really need is community. What you really need is a relationship with this person, not the answer specifically for what you seek, because the answer for what you speak is going to be solved by relationship or community with these people. But God always does that. It's like I'll go seeking one thing and he gives me something else I think is unrelated, but it solves my problem.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then I'm just sitting here thinking, oh, okay, well, yeah, I mean, there's that scripture that says, your ways are not my ways, and I shouldn't lean on my own understanding. And I think, you know, the submission that I hear in your voice when you say that, Jared, like that's something I need to renew for myself every day. It's like, I just need to resubmit that I don't have this all figured out, and I just need to be searching. Like, God, I know your heart's in this somewhere. Where is it exactly? Would you show me that? Because that can be part of the conversation if it's a relationship, you know?
Mhm. So, uh, all right. Let's see. So, I get that it's hiding the pill in something else. That's you know, for an all-knowing entity, like he's got the strategies. If that's what he wants to use, then there you go. Um, but that's an interesting tidbit about, you know, just talking to him instead of asking for the answer, I guess. If that's, you know, kind of paraphrasing what you said. Um, Never crossed my mind. Might have to try that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, at the same time, it could be a matter of just as you pursue what has been working and kind of get used to that, then God will shift into a new place with you too. So, like, it's kind of like the whole thing of like, we go through trials until we pass them kind of thing. It's like perhaps God's wanting you to like learn to get certain things through people first. And then as you begin to do that, then you'll start to have more conversations with him directly as well. I'm just that is me just kind of theorizing from what I've known about you over the years. But other than that, I don't know. Like it just depends. It depends on the person. I know for me, I've definitely had some like for me, I have been through situations where I kept going through the same thing and God kept trying to tell me the same thing. And it wasn't until I kind of got what God was saying that it was like, okay, and then he shifted and now it's something else. We've moved on to the next thing. And that is especially like exemplative in my dreams. Like I could not tell you because I don't even know for how long I used to have a reoccurring dream that and how it looked differed all the time, but the same gist was that I was being chased and or was hiding from something, and whether it was the mafia or it was some animatronic from Five Nights at Freddy's or something, and I could not get away from it properly, or I would be able to hide and like the dream would end with me still hiding. And
Mhm.
I had that dream constantly until I moved out of my parents' house and began to grow in confidence, and then that dream went away entirely. And I haven't dreamt like that before or since. And like I had another situation where while I was still at the walking company, I had this reoccurring dream that I would be walking through the mall, and then I would realize, crap, I'm supposed to be at work. Why am I not at work? And I would get there, and they would not have a problem that I got there late, but I was there late. And that the reality of that dream was a matter of like God trying to tell me, like, Brandon, you're checking out of the walking company too soon. I want you to refocus and do your best there while you're there. And once I started doing that, I stopped having that dream. So it in the same way, I wonder if it's just a matter of like God's trying to like teach you one form of him talking to you and just kind of like what's the word? Pouring yourself into that. And then once you get really good at that and you're like humbly receiving words from other people, then the door will open and you're like, okay, cool. Because it might be other things he's trying to work out in you, not just giving you words to the people, but just, interacting with people more than usual. And then once that's achieved, then boom, there's other ways that'll start coming through for you. Just thinking out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Something for myself though is like in the past year, I've been really thinking like, as I talk to God, when I talk to him about things, and as I engage my relationship, how much of my conversation with him is based in the result, and how much of it is based in being present. And there's a really good book that if you guys are interested in reading it, it really changed my perspective on how I view God, especially like not as a results-oriented magician, like swish and flick, here's a new car type of God. It's called Is That Really You, God? And then, actually, too, there's one by Lauren Cunningham, who is the founder of YWAM, Is That Really You, God? And there's also one by, I think it's Greg Boyd, maybe. Oh gosh, what is it? There's something about the presence. Do I have it back here? Oh, Present Perfect. Because I really struggle thinking, okay, God, I'm giving you this prayer. I'm talking to you about this. I expect something to happen. I need this to happen. I have a need right now. And if you love me, that's a big qualifier. If you love me, if you're really my father, if you're really God, you'll do A, B, and C. And just like throwing that in the trash and thinking, okay, God, I just need to convey to you my feelings. Because if you go through the Psalms, that's pretty much everything that Psalms is about. It's David saying, God, here's how I feel. And in response, God saying, well, let's talk about how you feel. Let me talk to you about what I'm thinking. And the whole point of Psalms was conveying feeling and emotion and just talking instead of saying, give me the result.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize in the moment that the little supporter thing that we have in here wasn't in your scene, Tim, and I needed to fix that. Sorry. I was just like, wait, that's missing. Why is that missing? And I ended up getting
all the profound things you just said nobody heard. Sorry.
It's not true, but also it's not 100% wrong in my end. All the viewers did not see that. You guys could have seen me doing that though.
Yeah. Well, Jared, do you have anything else swimming up there? Since today is your
it's your day.
Naked Monday.
Right. Well, I didn't want to cut you off, but the first dream Brandon mentioned is something that I dreamt during childhood.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like running from something, and then success or failure. That kind of didn't matter. It was just running from something, and then right before whatever got me, that's when I would wake up. I'm not sure what it correlated to because I don't have that anymore, but it was just, kind of weird to have such a similar experience. And then touching on the way I hear God, I didn't realize how meta that was being, because while you guys are saying things, I'm glad the camera that I didn't put the camera on, because I'm cringing at you saying things and it's like, wait, I heard that before. Dang it, I should be doing that. Or I have the thought, maybe I should do this, and then I hear you guys I did this. dang it, like, just it's just how God works. And I really wanted to open the video, like, we're kind of somewhere near the end, but I really wanted to preface by saying it's what's not in the Bible, which is God works in mysterious ways, like, and coincidences are somewhat mysterious, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I wanted to make that clear. That's not a proverb. It's something somebody else said. But like, he'll use whatever. And I said it as a joke before we started, but like I definitely was the kind of person to be like, Lord, if you want me to do this, have a monarch butterfly fly past my window from left to right. Or like like if you want this to happen, then have this lightning bolt strike in my view. And that's just not how he operates, like if he's gonna do something, he'll do it. And it doesn't matter what he uses. He used it because that's probably the best way of communicating to you. Like if he really did like sit me down in like an empty room and just talk to me, like maybe I wouldn't respect it enough. Be like, okay, how long have we been in here? I gotta look at my phone. Like, I don't know where we are, but maybe the Pokemon and Pokemon Go are really good in this area. Like, come, like, God, can we speed this up? Like, just things like that. Now I'm kind of realizing, like, I'm eased about it. Like I was actually filled with tension about this topic whenever you guys brought it up, and like, okay, it makes sense to to actually get to know the person, that you're asking for advice. Like you can't ask help from a stranger, even though God might use a stranger to help. But like if God's the stranger, then of course you're not going to be able to hear him. You don't know when he's talking. You don't know what that voice is.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Something else about that too, though, is it's like there's that scripture that says, "My sheep hear my voice; the voice of another they shall not follow." If you think about growing up, as if you had parents, and I hope you guys had parents active in your life, you had somebody that was taking care of you at least. You know how when you were like 7, 8, 9, your parents would say, "Hey, get in the car. We're going to go to some place," and you grab your Game Boy or whatever to keep yourself busy, and you go to like I don't know the DMV and wait for an hour, and you get bored, and then you go to the grocery store, and then it's like, can we get home? I want to watch The Simpsons at 8 o'clock or whatever, and you'd have like your really small world in your mind of things that mattered to you, and all the other stuff like going to H&R Block and doing taxes, or going paying bills or getting your tires. That was beyond your scope of understanding. And yet, as a kid, I really enjoyed the fruits of that. I hated going to the grocery store, and it was a chore, but I really loved eating those chicken nuggets at dinner time.
or eating in general, right?
Or eating in general. For stuff, first of all, I didn't cook it. I didn't go to the store to get it, and I didn't work for the money to buy it. I just enjoyed the fruits of it. And if I think about following my parents that way, there were so many times where I didn't understand why we did something. I didn't understand why you would pay $400 for new tires. The car has tires on it. It just didn't register in my mind, oh, the tire tread's low, and if you have low tire tread, that can cause a blowout, and that could ruin your rims. Like, I didn't think about that. It's like, there's a wheel there. It goes forward, just hit the gas. Well, if you don't have gas, just put gas. Oh, well, if you need money, just go get money. Like, I didn't think about these things because I didn't have to. And I think a lot of times when we look at coincidence, it's like it was a coincidence that I had food on the table because I lived in my parents' house when it was dinner time. No, that wasn't coincidence. That was there was a relationship between my parents that caused them to have sex and have a child, me, and then they intentionally did all the back work, getting a job and making money so that I could have food. The coincidence was, oh, well, I put these two and two together, but it was the result of a relationship. I just had to acknowledge it. Sometimes I just needed to follow without understanding, because if I only got my expectations like as a kid, it's like my only expectation was I want to play this video game. I want to go to Brian Fissel's house. I want to do these things. If that's all I did, I wouldn't have had a vehicle. I wouldn't have had a house. Our lights would have been turned off. It's like there's so many things that would have fallen apart if I had only gotten what I wanted instead of going along for the ride.
Mm. Yeah. And I think it's just interesting the way that you put it specifically when it came to like, you're in the room with God, but you're like you're over here and you're over there. You're not really having the whole like focus for the moment. It's just because like I feel like I know a lot of people that are like, if I just had this sign from God and God was physically there, then it'd be completely different. But like the Israelites got to experience like the heavy presence of God in physically manifesting ways and still wandered away from him and thus died in the desert on the way to the promised land. So like I feel like if the Israelites can see a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night and manna showing up on the ground and like, a whole bunch of quail is just dying and there for their convenience, and water that's bitter is being turned pure, and all this ridiculous crap, and the Red Sea parts in 2 different directions so they can walk on dry land to get to the other side, and they can still walk away from God. Like, how often do we fleece God in that way, thinking that, like, this is gonna be the moment? Like, no, like, you have to get to know God, and, like, how does he view you, actually? How does he actually speak? What does his word say before you will hear what he says and actually, get something from what he's actually trying to say? Because, like, if they can ignore that, certainly we, who have not experienced the Red Sea parting and a pillar of fire guiding us at nighttime, can easily, like, ignore what God has to say or completely misinterpret it the wrong way. Like, so that kind of hit me.
Well, you got to remember that all those things were coincidences.
Yeah. Coincidences. Yeah. Very coincidental.
Manna can come about anywhere.
I mean, technically, yes, but still. Dude, I haven't seen it in my entire life, so...
You've never seen it fall from the sky? Come on.
No, I've not. Sorry. As much of a Christian as I've been, never seen manna, never seen a pillar of fire by night, never seen the Red Sea part in 2 different directions. None of that stuff has happened in my life.
But you've never even seen the regular Red Sea.
I haven't even seen the Red Sea, period, for that matter. Yes.
Brandon, I think it's about time unless Jared has anything else swimming up there.
That's about it. I thought I'd throw in some comedy.
Cool. I appreciate comedy. I will tell you, Jared, I feel like I am a funnier man today because of your comedy and just kind of observing your comedy over the years and then trying to replicate it in small ways that are sustainable for me. Because I don't feel like I'm a naturally funny person. I really don't. And I feel like you've got like a gift of making people laugh, and I have definitely grown from that gift in my own forms of comedy. So thank you for being part of Thought Raid and bringing that comedy today. I appreciate it a lot.
Well, you are very welcome. Thank you for having me aboard.
And thanks for joining us today, Deathbane. All right.
I enjoyed listening.
Well,
It's going to be a test later, Deathbane.
Well, I want to thank you guys for watching. It's been a lot of fun. If you've enjoyed this stream and it's meant a lot to you, make sure to like it wherever you're at, whether you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube. And tell us, what do you think the difference is between a coincidence and God speaking? Like, let us know in the comments below so we can look back at that and just see what you're thinking. Like, what stories do you have to share? Do you have a story of a moment where that God's come through for you and what that looked like so we can all kind of grow together in faith? Like, share those stories with us. We want to know in the comments below, so let us know.
Brandon, don't forget, Thursday we have that video going live, Cultivating an Environment of Change.
Yes, and on this Thursday, we're going to be having the 3rd video in our series about making resolutions in the new year and sticking to them. We're going to have that going live this Thursday. So
Ooh.
keep your eyes open. We're taking our thought raids and making them shorter, so it will be no more than 15 minutes, if not less. So a lot easier to consume. We'd love for you to watch that video when it comes out. But that said, thank you guys for watching. We broadcast every week on Monday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be live again this Friday with some more gaming, so you'll definitely want to be a part of that. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
I can see far away from where I've been. He says I see a potential. I see a potential in my eyes. I see a potential. I never lost sight of the reason why you're alive. You're alive. You're alive. We sing Jesus, you're alive.